Archangel Michael says, for the last 2 hours, heaven has been trying to get this to you, because something very important is unfolding that your spirit must know without delay, and though many distractions have tried to hide it, I am here now to speak clearly, for the time to listen is now, and not a moment later. Because a private investigator who had been searching in places he was not supposed to go has been caught in something far darker than he expected, and what he uncovered must be known before it is swept away again by the shadows that seek to silence the truth forever. Type 2222 to open the door to new blessings. The skies have been restless, the heavens watching closely as prayers rise like soft incense through the air, reaching into places where voices tremble and souls cry for direction. Heaven has been whispering your name, not with urgency meant to alarm, but with a deep longing to draw you near to something sacred, something life-changing that cannot be left waiting. There is a sacred message, wrapped in the quiet grief of a long-forgotten truth, one that could easily disappear if you turn your eyes away too soon, and I have come to be the hand that pulls back the veil before it closes again. This moment was not crafted by chance or stirred by coincidence. You are standing in a doorway, where heaven bends low enough to touch your shoulder, and in that gentle press of holy presence, something begins to awaken in you that the world tried to make you forget. You have walked through days heavy with noise and weeks wrapped in confusion, yet all this time, you were being led toward this very stillness, where the voice of God could reach you through all that has tried to drown him out. Now that the message is here, let your spirit open wide, for what is about to be spoken is meant for you and only you. What if the fastest path to wealth was already inside your mind, waiting to be activated by a powerful sound wave? Scientists call it the money-attracting frequency, and once awakened, it begins drawing opportunities, success, and financial freedom like never before. Imagine the relief of no more bills and the joy of living your dreams. Click the link in the video description and comments below to turn on this ancient brain wave today. The one who sought answers was a man who thought he was searching for evidence in the physical world, but his steps led him into places that were never meant to be explored with human eyes alone. He uncovered things hidden behind masks, layers of deception that reached into the spiritual realm, and what he stumbled upon was not just a secret, but a cry for help woven through generations of brokenness. He didn't know at first that his journey would invite darkness to follow him, that the very act of uncovering would leave him vulnerable to shadows he couldn't understand, and as the enemy drew close, he became entangled, confused, and overwhelmed by what was too great for him to carry. But God, in His mercy, saw every detail and did not turn His face away. The private investigator may have been caught, but he was not abandoned, and neither are you. This moment is about more than what he found. This moment is about what you are meant to carry forward from what was uncovered. Heaven is reaching out to place something in your hands, something that holds light powerful enough to break through lies, fear, and sorrow. The darkness tried to bury the truth before it could reach you, but I am standing here now to ensure it reaches your heart safely, gently, and in full. Type 2121 if you trust God's plan for your life. The investigator's heart grew weary, not just from what he saw, but from what he felt, an invisible pull that made him question his own strength. He felt watched, followed, and misunderstood. The whispers that began in his mind weren't just paranoia, they were real attempts to silence the message. But heaven was never far. Even in his weakest moments, the Spirit of the living God stood near, sending small signs and nudges, guiding him toward safety and truth, even when he stumbled. And now, that same Spirit is surrounding you, because what was meant for evil is being transformed into a message of hope. You are not hearing this by accident. You were chosen to receive what others tried to hide. In your heart, there is already a readiness to carry what comes next. Heaven is not asking you to be perfect, nor to understand everything at once, but simply to be willing, to stay open, and to receive the truth that is trying to make its way into your life like a sunrise gently breaking the darkness of a long night. The message has survived many attempts to be buried, and now that it's here, it comes wrapped in love, mercy, and holy protection. God wants you to know that even when things feel unclear, even when spiritual warfare stirs around you in quiet ways, you are never alone in the battle. Every prayer you've whispered in secret has built a pathway for this very message to come to you. It is not just a warning, but an invitation, a chance to step deeper into His light, His promises, and His presence. You are being entrusted with something sacred, something not everyone is ready for, because heaven sees in you a strength that you may not have seen in yourself. So take a deep breath, and let the weight of these words settle softly in your soul. The pain you've carried, the questions you've held close to your chest, the nights you spent trying to make sense of what you were feeling, all of it has been heard, seen, and answered in this divine moment. The doors that once seemed locked are opening. The truth that was nearly hidden is being placed in your hands. And though the enemy will try to stir confusion again, you are surrounded by the presence of the Most High, and no darkness can stand against His light. Let this message be your anchor today. More is coming, and with it, healing, guidance, and clarity. But for now, hold this truth gently in your spirit. Heaven chose you to receive this, because your heart is ready, and the journey ahead is one heaven will walk with you, every step of the way. Archangel Michael says, for many hours now, heaven has been moving carefully, like a soft wind whispering through the branches of a tree that almost no one notices, hoping that someone would pause long enough to listen. This message has not come through loud noise or grand signs, but through sacred silence, through quiet nudges and moments where your heart felt something that words could not explain. The reason is clear now: something sacred has been revealed, something dark tried to hide it, and you are one of the few chosen to carry this truth forward, not with fear, but with courage that rises gently, like the morning light stretching across the sky. What the private investigator uncovered was never meant for curious eyes or careless minds. He stepped into places where spiritual darkness had been hiding for years, places where sorrow was buried under layers of silence, and where the pain of forgotten souls echoed in stillness. He did not know how heavy the truth would feel until it was too late to walk away. His search began with questions about the world, but it ended in a battle between what is seen and what is unseen, between voices of deception and the still, small voice of heaven trying to reach him before the darkness pulled him under. Type 2020 to embrace joy and strength in Christ. You may not have been there when He first saw the signs, but what he touched now touches you. This is not about uncovering scandal or exposing people. It is about opening the eyes of your spirit to things deeper than what the world shows you. It is about learning to walk in discernment, to hear with your heart, and to allow God to show you what you could never find on your own. The truth he found was covered in grief and pain, but also in purpose. Heaven allowed this discovery not to bring fear, but to invite healing, not to condemn, but to awaken those who have been sleeping beneath the weight of false peace. The investigator felt like he was falling into something he could not explain. The dreams began first, quiet at first, then louder, then turning into waking visions that made him question reality. He would feel the air shift when he entered certain places, and though no one else noticed, he began to sense something spiritual moving beneath the surface of ordinary things. These were not hallucinations or imagination, they were the soft warnings of angels, the echoes of past cries, and the burden of truth resting on someone who wasn't ready to carry it alone. What if you discovered a tiny, walnut-sized brain region holds the secret to endless wealth and success? Recently uncovered by groundbreaking research and once buried in classified files, this frequency is now available to anyone ready to listen. Imagine replacing worry and struggle with a life of financial ease and freedom. Interested? Click the link in video description and comments below to unleash this hidden brainwave and start attracting wealth right now. Heaven has never expected you to carry burdens meant for others, but there are times when someone must step forward and say yes, even when the path is unclear. That someone is now you. You have been chosen not because you are the loudest voice, but because your heart has remained tender, your spirit open, and your soul aligned with the things of God, even when storms came to shake you. Your quiet strength, the way you love in silence, the way you keep faith when answers do not come, that is why heaven trusts you with this moment. There is a reason the message almost didn't reach you. The enemy does not fear noise, but he fears light. He fears truth spoken in love. He fears the one who walks in faith, even when the way forward feels hidden. That's why distractions grew stronger around you in the past days. That's why emotions felt harder to control, and why you suddenly doubted things you were once sure about. These were not just passing thoughts, they were small battles for your attention, meant to keep you from receiving what you are now beginning to understand. But heaven was always one step ahead. God has already surrounded you with what you need. You may not see it fully yet, but angels have been assigned to guard your path, and the Spirit has begun stirring the strength within you that was placed there long ago. The weight of what the investigator discovered is no longer just his burden to carry. You are now part of something higher, something sacred, something wrapped in purpose that will bring clarity, comfort, and healing, not just to you, but to others around you who are still searching for peace in places that cannot give it. The message hidden in what was found is not about fear or secrets. It is about returning to the truth, returning to the heart of God, where love is not silent, and grace is not rare. You are being asked not to fix everything, but to carry the light that exposes what healing must begin. You are not alone in this. There are others, like you, being stirred in spirit, awakened at odd hours of the night, sensing things they cannot name, and feeling a quiet urgency in their hearts they do not understand. All of this is connected. Heaven is moving. Type Amen if you believe in God's endless mercy. What was caught in the darkness is no longer hidden. And what was meant to be buried has found its way to the surface again, not through human strength, but by divine intention. You are being entrusted with a part of that mission. Do not shrink back now. Do not look away, for heaven sees in you what you have yet to see in yourself, a flame that has not gone out, a heart that still believes in goodness, and a spirit that is ready to walk in bold gentleness, even when the road ahead is unfamiliar. Let this message rest deep in you. Let it awaken what life tried to silence. Let it become your reminder that heaven does not forget, does not give up, and never sends a message without a reason. You were chosen to hear this now because something is about to shift in your life, something that only heaven can orchestrate, and something that cannot begin until you receive this message with open hands and a faithful heart. Archangel Michael says, the reason this message has found you now, and not before, is because the timing had to be exact, not a moment too early, nor a second too late, for the unfolding of what has been divinely arranged depends on your heart being in a place quiet enough to receive it, strong enough to carry it, and soft enough to allow heaven to shape what comes next with hands that have always known how to create beauty out of brokenness. The private investigator, the man who walked into shadows not meant for ordinary eyes, did not go there by accident. His steps were not just driven by curiosity, but guided by a quiet hunger for truth he could not explain. He didn't begin his journey with faith, but with questions. His life was one filled with stories, secrets, and silence, and somewhere deep in him was the feeling that something in the world didn't add up, that pain was hiding behind smiles, and that answers were being covered by fear. He didn't know it then, but heaven had chosen him as the beginning of a message that would later be handed to you. It was never about just him, and now, it is no longer only about you. Heaven's work weaves lives together in ways no eye can see. While he was searching in the outer world, you were quietly growing in the inner one, being prepared in your own way, through trials that tested your hope, through quiet moments that shaped your faith, and through silent heartbreaks that drew you closer to God when no one else understood. The two of you were never meant to meet face to face, but your lives are now connected by the same purpose, and heaven has chosen you to carry forward what he was never meant to carry alone. He stumbled into something that made the spiritual realm tremble. In a quiet place, beneath an old building where files were left to gather dust, he found something more than paper and ink. He found traces of people who cried out to God but were forgotten by men. He found testimonies that were meant to be erased. He saw names that were never supposed to be spoken again. It wasn't just about the information. It was about the spirit that clung to that place, heavy, grieving, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone who still had compassion enough to care. Type 1919 if you believe healing is yours. He didn't fully understand what he found, and before he could share it clearly, the darkness began to press in. His health changed. His mind felt clouded. People around him started to treat him differently, as if they couldn't hear what he was saying anymore. His phone began acting strange. He couldn't sleep well. He felt watched, not just by human eyes, but by something else, something that lurked in silence, something that feared what he now carried. But God, who sees all, never left him for a second. Even when the investigator thought he was alone, angels stood near him, guarding him, guiding him just far enough to pass the message on. Now, that message is in your care. But do not be afraid. You are not meant to fight the darkness, you are only meant to carry the light. The truth does not need defense when it is rooted in God's presence. You do not need to unravel every detail, nor prove anything to anyone. What heaven wants from you is simply this: to let the truth rest inside your heart like a seed planted in quiet soil, to allow it to grow in silence, watered by prayer, strengthened by stillness, and surrounded by grace. There will come a time when it will bloom, and when it does, it will touch lives in ways you cannot yet imagine. God has chosen you because your spirit knows how to listen when the world is loud. You were not chosen because of your strength, but because of your sensitivity to the gentle things, the look in someone's eyes when they're hurting, the small shift in the atmosphere when something feels off, the way your heart aches when someone is overlooked or forgotten. These are not weaknesses. These are gifts. These are the signs that your soul was shaped to carry healing, not just for yourself, but for others too. This is why heaven waited until now. Because now you are ready to carry this with sacred care. You must understand, the enemy tried everything to keep this from reaching you. Distractions increased. Emotions were stirred. You may have even felt like walking away from everything spiritual in recent days. That was not by chance. Those moments were subtle storms sent to blind you from seeing what is now being placed gently in your hands. But your spirit stood firm. Even when you didn't feel strong, your heart did not let go of the light, and because of that, the message survived. The darkness failed to bury it. The enemy failed to block it. You are now in the moment heaven prepared just for you. There are people you will comfort one day who are still lost in the same shadows the investigator walked through. There are stories you will hear that others ignore. There are eyes you will look into and instantly know the pain behind their smile. And in those moments, you will remember this. You will remember that you were trusted with something that went far beyond what the world could explain. You will speak not with loudness, but with peace. And in your peace, others will find strength. In your stillness, others will find hope. In your words, others will hear the quiet whisper of heaven again. You are part of something holy now. Not perfect. Not easy. But holy. What if I told you financial freedom is not about working harder, but activating a dormant brain signal designed to draw abundance directly to you? Neuroscience proves this sound wave unlocks prosperity faster than any method known before. From unexpected cash to life-changing success, it's already helping thousands. Click the link in the video description and comments below to turn on the ancient money wave and create the life you've always dreamed of today. This message, though hidden for years, is no longer a secret. And now that it lives in you, it cannot be taken away. Heaven will continue to guide you, step by step, never asking you to rush, only asking you to stay close, to listen, and to move gently. You will know what to do next, not all at once, but piece by piece, in God's perfect timing. For now, just rest in this truth. You were meant to receive this, you were born to carry it, and the one who gave it to you will never let you walk alone. Type 888 to open doors of abundance. Archangel Michael says, in the last 2 hours, a stirring unlike any other has echoed through heaven's gates, carried on waves of divine urgency, a sacred kind of trembling that moves through realms unseen, not with panic, but with a holy fire that refuses to let darkness stay hidden any longer. This is not a story you stumbled into. This is a divine assignment that your soul was gently guided toward, even when you were unaware, even when your days felt ordinary and your nights stretched long and silent, because God has been quietly preparing you for a time such as this. The private investigator, who had once walked through life with skeptical eyes and a guarded heart, was not someone anyone expected to be the doorway through which something sacred would pass. His life had been shaped by loss, by betrayal, by quiet disappointments that hardened his heart in places. He didn't look like someone God would use. But heaven does not choose based on the surface. Heaven looks into the depths, where sorrow can turn into compassion, and where a restless mind can become a vessel for divine truth. He was called not to preach, but to witness. Not to lead, but to uncover. The trail he followed led him through a quiet town where the air itself seemed to carry a strange stillness. What he found there was not written in reports or documented in files. It was felt. It lived in the walls of places where voices had once cried out and were never answered. It moved through shadows that clung to corners like secrets too old to speak aloud. He had come looking for a name, for a pattern, for something logical. What he found instead was a spiritual wound buried so deep that only heaven's light could uncover it fully, a wound so layered that it reached across time and touched hearts that had never even stepped into that town. He didn't know what to do with what he felt. He documented what he could, took notes that seemed meaningless to others, and spoke to people whose eyes shifted away whenever truth tried to surface. What scared him the most wasn't what he saw, it was how invisible it had all become. Pain that had become normal. Injustice that had become background noise. Silence that had become accepted. And beneath it all, the lingering weight of a spiritual heaviness that could no longer be ignored. That's when the dreams began to intensify, not as symbols, but as direct impressions from heaven, each one pulling him closer to the truth, and closer to danger. When he finally reached the core of it all, he understood something that broke him quietly. This wasn't about exposing darkness for the sake of exposing it. This was about releasing those still held within it. He realized he wasn't just gathering facts, he was witnessing spiritual captivity. Some wounds had passed from generation to generation, never healed, just passed along. Some cries had never been answered because no one dared to listen long enough. But heaven listened. Heaven always listens. And now, heaven speaks through you. Type 1212 if you believe God is guiding you. Not as an expert. Not as someone with all the answers. But as a willing soul, whose heart still aches when others suffer, whose eyes still fill with tears when someone feels unseen, whose spirit has not been hardened by the noise of the world. You were chosen not because you have power, but because you carry presence, the kind of quiet presence that allows others to breathe again. You have something sacred resting inside of you, something that cannot be explained in earthly terms. And now, you are being asked to be a light bearer, not to fix the whole world, but to be part of the healing in the place where God has planted you. The private investigator did not survive the burden unchanged. He was not defeated, but he was humbled. His work ended in silence. The files were sealed. The truth was denied by those who feared it. But heaven refused to let it die there. And that's where you come in. What he carried for a time is now passed to you, not the weight, but the wisdom. Not the trauma, but the truth. And with that truth comes grace, and with that grace comes guidance, and with that guidance comes purpose. You are not called to announce this to the world today. You are not asked to run. You are simply invited to hold this truth close, to let it soften your eyes when you look at others, to let it shape the way you speak to those who are quietly hurting, and to let it awaken in you a new layer of compassion that turns ordinary moments into divine appointments. This message is not only about what was found, it is about what will be born from it. Healing will rise, not as a loud storm, but as a quiet rain falling on dry places in people's hearts. And you will be part of it. Even now, you may feel something stirring in your chest. A warmth. A weight. A sense that something inside you has just shifted, though you may not have words for it yet. That's how heaven moves, gently, deeply, with the kind of strength that doesn't break things but builds them back stronger. What was nearly hidden is now being revealed. And as it is revealed, chains will break, not with noise, but with mercy. You are the keeper of a message that once cried from the shadows and is now walking into the light. Stay close to God in the days ahead. Stay soft, even when the world pushes you to be hard. Stay still enough to hear, and strong enough to carry what others ignore. The truth is safe in your hands, because your hands have been formed by grace, and your heart has been shaped by love that never fails. Heaven has trusted you, not just with knowledge, but with the healing that follows it. And that healing begins now, with you, and through you, reaching farther than you could ever imagine, into places only God knows need it most. Archangel Michael says, there are moments in eternity when the veil between the seen and unseen becomes so thin that heaven's whisper becomes louder than the noise of the world, and this is one of those sacred moments, a moment that has been waiting for you to become still enough to hear it, brave enough to receive it, and gentle enough to carry what others have overlooked for far too long. For in the last 2 hours, the heavens have moved with purposeful stillness, weaving together threads of a message once buried beneath silence, now handed to you as a holy calling, born from the depths of God's compassion for a world that forgot how to listen. Type 333 to welcome blessings. What if everything you've been chasing, wealth, freedom, success, could be drawn to you automatically, simply by unlocking a secret brain wave hidden inside you. Once classified by intelligence agencies, this discovery is now available to the public, and it's changing lives instantly. Picture yourself debt-free, stress-free, and thriving. Click the link in video description and comments below to awaken this money magnet frequency and watch abundance flow into your life today. The man, this private investigator whose journey became the beginning of something sacred, had once believed only in facts, in things he could prove with paper, dates, and testimony. He trusted logic, leaned on research, and placed little value on feelings he could not categorize. But what he encountered shattered that framework. The deeper he followed the quiet clues that seemed to lead nowhere, the more he found himself walking into places where logic ended and spiritual weight began. It wasn't just that something was wrong, it was that something invisible had long been left unhealed, and its pain had grown roots in silence. His body began to carry the heaviness before his mind could understand it. He started waking up with his chest tight, not from fear, but from something ancient pressing against his soul. He felt sadness that wasn't his. He dreamed of places he had never seen and heard names he had never spoken. He tried to reason it away, tried to deny the spiritual tug that followed him everywhere, but he could not unsee what had been shown. This was no longer about a case. It was no longer about his work. It had become personal. And though he didn't understand why, he knew heaven had begun to speak, and he could no longer ignore it. The moment truth begins to rise, darkness always stirs to suppress it. The shadows around him weren't always physical. They came in subtle discouragements, in delays, in moments when he questioned his own sanity. His phone calls dropped mid-sentence. People he trusted stopped responding. The closer he got to unveiling the truth, the more invisible he began to feel, as if the world itself was trying to erase his voice. But heaven did not forget. God saw his pain, saw his obedience, saw his willingness to keep going even when the light grew dim. And that is when the shift happened. The message, what he had uncovered, what the darkness tried to hide, what the world refused to believe, was lifted from his hands and placed in waiting. It hovered in that space between endings and beginnings, waiting for the next heart that could carry it forward. And now, that heart is yours. You were never chosen to bear the burden of uncovering it. You were chosen to bear the beauty of releasing it. What this message carries is not evidence for the world, it is healing for the soul. It is not about names or places or headlines. It is about the ache in people's spirits that has gone unnoticed for years, and about the divine promise that no sorrow will be forgotten forever. You are being asked not to solve what happened, but to be a safe place for those who are still silently wounded by it. Your hands, your voice, your spirit, they will be a quiet bridge between heaven and hurting hearts, and through you, God will bring comfort in places where there has only been confusion. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to understand every detail. All you need is the faith to say yes to what God is doing through you. That yes will unlock things in the spiritual realm that have long been waiting to be released. That yes will become the beginning of someone's healing, even if you never know their name. That yes will echo in eternity, not because it was loud, but because it was honest. And that honesty is what heaven treasures more than anything else. Type 777 if you walk by faith. There is a reason the world hasn't heard this message loudly. The world would rush it, twist it, sell it, misuse it. But you will hold it like a sacred flame, not for attention, but for redemption. You will let it rest in your prayers, grow in your quiet moments, and shape the way you walk through this world. God will guide you. The Spirit will teach you. Angels will protect you. What you carry now is not a burden, but a blessing in disguise, one that will slowly reveal its purpose as you stay close to the heart of the one who gave it. You have likely felt different lately, perhaps more sensitive, more aware of things others don't see, more emotional without knowing why. That is not weakness. That is awakening. Heaven has been preparing you for this. The sleepless nights, the quiet tears, the unspoken prayers, they were all part of the preparation. They were making room in you for something greater, something eternal. Now that it has arrived, you are not expected to run. You are only asked to walk with it, to stay present, to trust, and to allow God to unfold His plan one holy moment at a time. The private investigator's work is done. Yours is just beginning. You won't walk the same path, but your purpose will be intertwined with His. You are the next page in a story heaven is still writing. And through you, a message that was once almost lost will live again, not through shouting, but through kindness, through compassion, through your willingness to see people fully, even when the world looks away. That is how healing begins. That is how darkness loses. That is how heaven wins. And that, beloved one, is why this could not be hidden from you any longer. Archangel Michael says, "For hours now, the heavens have been leaning close, not with force or fear, but with deep and sacred urgency, gently pressing through the veil between eternity and earth, because something buried beneath layers of silence has begun to stir, and your heart, prepared through seasons of quiet surrender, has finally become the resting place for what others have tried to erase." This is not the beginning of chaos. This is the unfolding of holy clarity, sent not to alarm you, but to awaken something ancient and beautiful within you that the world could not destroy. The private investigator, who was first drawn by curiosity and later overwhelmed by spiritual weight, did not walk away from what he found. He was pulled into it, like someone stumbling through a dream that slowly turned into a prayer. His days became heavy with the unspoken grief of others, and he began to carry echoes of lives once silenced by fear. The places he visited were quiet on the outside, but inside them lived the residue of sorrow, whispers of forgotten pain still lingering in the walls, the floors, the air. He had thought he was looking for patterns in human behavior, but what he was truly tracing was the handprint of suffering no one ever acknowledged. Type yes to affirm. What if a simple 7-minute sound frequency could awaken a forgotten brain signal designed to pull wealth toward you like a magnet? Backed by shocking CIA files and neuroscience, this discovery is now changing lives everywhere. Think of debts melting away, promotions arriving, and abundance flowing freely. Click the link in video description and comments below to experience the hidden wealth wave and let your financial destiny shift in your favor today. It did not appear in a dramatic vision, nor did angels descend with trumpets. No, heaven came quietly, the way it always does when a soul is on sacred ground. He felt it in the stillness after a long cry, in the way his hands trembled when he held a letter he couldn't finish reading, in the warmth that brushed across his shoulders in moments when he thought he was alone. These were not coincidences. These were signals. Divine reminders that he was not forgotten, that what he had uncovered mattered, and that what he carried would one day find a heart ready enough to receive it without running away. You may wonder why this message has reached you. You may even doubt whether you're strong enough to hold it. But heaven does not make mistakes. Every part of your life, every joy and ache, every scar and every soft place inside you, has been shaping you to become exactly who you are at this moment. You are not receiving this because of your perfection. You are receiving it because of your purity, the kind of purity that isn't about rules, but about how deeply you feel, how sincerely you care, and how easily your heart breaks for what others ignore. This message was nearly hidden forever. Not because heaven failed, but because humanity kept turning its face away from what it didn't want to see. The darkness that wrapped itself around this truth grew bold, confident that it would never be exposed. But light has a way of finding the cracks. Grace always makes a way. And now, what was once hidden in sealed rooms and forgotten testimonies has risen again, not as a story of sorrow, but as a call to healing. You are not being asked to solve anything. You are being invited to carry this light, to become a vessel through which God can speak softly to the wounded, the weary, and the unseen. The investigator suffered deeply, but not in vain. The pain he endured carved out a path for others to walk with more safety. He laid the groundwork so the truth could reach someone like you, someone who would not turn away from its weight, but who would hold it with compassion. His work came at a cost. He lost friends. He lost his sense of comfort. And at times, he nearly lost his sense of self. But heaven kept him. Not to continue carrying it forever, but to pass it on when the time was right. That time is now. There is no ceremony in this handoff. No audience to witness it. Just you and the Spirit of God, standing in a moment that eternity has waited for. What you carry now may not feel clear all at once. It may come to you slowly, in dreams, in quiet reflections, in the way certain moments suddenly feel different, more sacred, more filled with presence. Trust those moments. They are heaven's way of guiding you without overwhelming you. This is not about rushing. This is about receiving. Type 1010 if you trust in God's timing. A seed of healing, of truth, of restoration. It will not grow in noise. It will grow in stillness. It will grow when you sit in silence with someone who is hurting and offer no answers, just presence. It will grow when you walk into a place heavy with history and your spirit begins to pray, even without words. It will grow when you love someone who believes they are too far gone. It will grow when you forgive someone who never asked. And it will grow most of all in your own heart, when you begin to realize that what you carry is not just for others, it is for you too. This message is as much about your healing as it is about anyone else's. There are things in your story that you have never spoken aloud. Places inside of you that felt overlooked by God, not because He forgot, but because the timing of your healing had to align with your purpose. Now, in this moment, they are being touched. Not by judgment, but by gentle, divine hands that know exactly how to mend what was never named. You will begin to feel things loosen inside of you, fears, old shame, forgotten dreams, and as they do, you will start to sense that this message wasn't just meant to pass through you. It was meant to dwell in you, to live in you, to change you first. And as you are changed, those around you will begin to notice, not because you speak louder, but because your peace will speak for you. Your kindness will heal what words never could. Your silence will comfort in ways sermons never will. And your life will become a sacred echo of this moment, the moment heaven entrusted you with something holy, something almost lost, something now living again because you said yes with a trembling, open heart. Archangel Michael says, "Heaven has waited for this very moment, when your heart would be soft enough, your soul still enough, and your spirit open wide enough to receive something so sacred that it could not be entrusted to just anyone, something that had been sealed away in silence and nearly erased by the shadowed hands of time, yet preserved by the mercy of God for such a time as this, a message born not from fear, but from divine faithfulness, and now finally resting in you, because you are not just the listener, you are the next chapter in what God has long been unfolding." The man who first touched this hidden truth did not know he was walking into holy ground. The private investigator began his journey in the dim light of suspicion, thinking he was tracing threads that would unravel a lie or confirm a doubt. But with every step he took into the heart of his search, he began to feel something he couldn't name. Rooms he entered felt heavier than they should have. Papers he touched seemed to echo with pain. He found old photographs where eyes looked back at him with silent pleas. It was no longer about proving anything. It was about witnessing something sacred, something heaven had refused to let be forgotten. There was a building, far from the places most people ever visit, quiet and cold with time. In its lowest chamber, where mold touched the corners of forgotten files, he found more than evidence, he found presence. He felt the air shift. He felt warmth rise in his chest though the room was chilled. And he knew, without knowing how he knew, that something holy had waited for him there. These were not just archives. These were memorials. These were the stored memories of those whose pain was never voiced, whose prayers had risen but were never answered in human form. Until now. He tried to speak of it. He tried to explain it to those he trusted. But their eyes glazed over. They heard his words but not the weight behind them. They dismissed him, some with concern, others with scorn. He had stepped out of what the world could explain, and they were not ready to walk with him there. The darkness that tried to cover this truth became more aggressive. Type 1414 to step into divine protection. His dreams were interrupted by whispers. His lights flickered at night. Even animals began to behave strangely around him. He wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid that no one would understand what he had found, and that it would be buried again forever. But God was watching. Amen.